Over the past few years, the use of dynamic ability systems has become one of my favorite mechanics, creating some of the most unique and memorable gameplay moments. So in this video, we're going to talk about how I implemented the custom ability and upgrade system into my game, Chess Survivors. Right now, you're probably thinking, what the heck does dynamic ability system even mean? Well, let me explain. Typically, games have upgrade trees where you can progress down in a linear fashion, oftentimes with branches and or mutually exclusive decisions. Those are, frankly, boring, but they are simple and easier to implement, so I guess they're fine. But what I actually prefer are systems where you could add components together to create unique and dynamic abilities. Think of systems in games such as Hades or Path of Exile or Binding of Isaac. In those games, you need to find synergies between the upgrades and abilities you find in the game to create powerful builds. Over the past 2 years, I've tried and failed many times to create my own dynamic system, but with each failure, I learned. And you know what? I think I finally found a solution that works for me. In my game, Chess Survivors, you'll need to defeat a horde of ever-growing chess-based enemies by leveling up your character to earn random loot in the form of new abilities, upgrades, or game-breaking relics. Cough, cough. You can go play the demo over on Steam right now. The biggest strength of my implementation has got to be its flexibility. So I'd like to take some time to share with you, yes, you, the high-level architecture, and then showcase an example of how easy it was to add a new ability to Chess Survivors. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, hit that like and subscribe button, sit back, relax, and let us begin. Let's think about this like it's a sandwich, because as you know, sandwiches are fantastic. The bread of a sandwich is the vehicle which holds it all together, and for us, that's the ability class, which is responsible for knowing what type of ability it is, the current properties it has, its current cooldown timer, and finally knowing how to parse the properties to create one or many projectile payloads. Next comes the meat of the sandwich, and for us, that is the properties. Now, each property knows what type it is, what the upgrade tiers are, the current upgrade tier value, and then how to spit out the upgrade into a readable string. Abstracting the properties away from the ability like this allowed me to easily load up each new ability with a custom set of properties, each having its own custom set of upgrade tiers, or in some cases, no upgrades at all. So now we have the bread and meat, but we're missing the flavor components, the condiments. In this metaphor, that is the projectile wrapper class, which functions as the payload for the ability. The key thing here is that we use the wrapper to do common things like setting the damage and holding the current property values. I then have a specific projectile scene which extends from the property wrapper to implement the cust init and cust movement methods. These methods are what defines how the projectile acts when it's actually added to the game world. And just like that, we have a sandwich. To summarize, we have an ability class with a bunch of properties. When the ability gets triggered, it parses those properties and creates the corresponding projectile scene, which has the code to define how the projectile should act, relying heavily on those property values passed in from the ability. All of that allows us to create a flexible and easily upgradable ability and one freaking delicious sandwich. I think the best way to really make this sink in will be to walk you through a specific example. My newest ability is the marble ability, which flings a small marble around the player, dealing a little bit of damage to any enemy it collides with. The marble will remain around the player for as long as it can still pierce more enemies. So let's see how I created this ability. In the ability generator class, I've defined the ability here to have these properties which have these values as their upgrade tiers. When it comes time to create an upgrade, the loot system will ask for the next tier for any upgrades that actually have an additional tier. In this case, that would be the cooldown, damage, number of projectiles, and pierce properties. Flipping over to the marble scene, we can see that it has custom marble art as well as a script attached, which again extends the projectile wrapper class. In the cust init method, it first checks to see if we are under the marble cap. I actually added the cap to the marbles because once we get around 20 marbles, the game starts to lag quite a bit. Yeesh. It then sets its color randomly, gives it a random rotation, and then plays an onload sound. Now, instead of using the custom movement function like other abilities, I've used the animation player to move the marble back and forth and then rotate in a clockwise fashion. Finally, the marble is defined as an area 2D, so when the area collides with an enemy, we need to decide to do something. In this case, we're going to deal damage, play a little collision noise, and then check to see if we have any pierce left. If we don't have any pierce itself, we know we've maxed out the number of collisions we can do, and so we use the queue free function to clean itself up. This is a far from perfect system, and it has quite a bit of manual effort into it, and I could definitely create some sort of Godot tool or add-on that would allow me to easily, quickly, dynamically create these abilities on top of this whole system. But again, as you think about creating specific tools for your projects, you got to think about how long your horizon is for those tools to become actually effective use of your dev time. That being said, I'm still incredibly proud of this system, and thus far it's allowed me to easily create new abilities and adjust existing ones. This approach also seamlessly integrated with my new Relic system, which is live right now over in the Steam demo. You should totally go check it out. It is becoming a really fun game. A special thank you to all my Patreon supporters and Twitch subs. I've been Aarimous. Have a beautiful day.